ওকে, ওদেরকে বলবো। Let's have a minute for our audience to join us. Tapasda,
Yes,
is it too cold?
it is. Yes.
Well, that part of Germany is quite cold normally.
Mhm.
So we have quite an audience right now. Welcome to the Persecution Report. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm Tonoy Emroz, your host today. And today we are exposing the corruption and incompetence of the Yunus regime, which has left Bangladeshi workers vulnerable, poverty rising again, and millions facing food insecurity. Joining me today is co-host Unpaid Jihan, an aerospace engineer and a columnist, barrister Tapas Kanti Baul, a lawyer and human rights activist, and Jesmin Chowdhury from Wales. She is a political activist and also a public official. Let's start with Jesmin Chowdhury. Jesmin, can you give us an overview of what's happening in the RMG sector today in Bangladesh?
Thank you, first of all, for adding me to this very important and timely discussions. The RNG, or the ready-made garment sector, as we know it, has been the backbone in Bangladesh's remarkable growth and development story. As the world's second largest exporter of garments, behind only China, at its most expansive time, as we know, the domestic clothing industry accounted for around 85% of Bangladesh's exports, employed around 4 million workers, out of whom 80% were reported to be women. Now, Bangladesh was seen as a global success story in terms of promoting economic growth and female empowerment through the export-oriented development policy. Over the last 16 months or so, the anarchy that Bangladesh has witnessed since Mohammed Yunus seized power has included violence and damage for those factories within the sector. Some were vandalized or set on fire. Others were abandoned as their owners fled due to politically motivated attacks or failed to secure the financing for their factories. Many lost critical.
When you say politically motivated, what do you mean? That these people are affiliated with Bangladesh Awami League, these businessmen?
Some of the businessmen were allegedly, because of their affiliation or support for the previous administration, they were targeted. There's been a targeted campaign against those owners, many of whom lost their critical purchases and are closing due to and many are closing just simply due to the loss and uncertainty for businesses and manufacturers in Bangladesh.
Let's have a little more clarification, because my understanding is that in any country in the world, the business community works very closely with the government. This is the nature of the job.
True.
And many Bangladesh Awami League was in power for 15 years in Bangladesh, and also did a monumental job to uplift Bangladeshi businesses. And it is very natural that, like all other part of the world, the business community in Bangladesh will also be working together with Bangladesh Awami League or whoever in the government. Do you mean, when you say that targeted for government affiliation, is that mean these people are directly affiliated with Awami League or just working with Bangladesh Awami League or the government?
Yeah, the business sector, as you rightly outlined, has always had a close working relationship with the administration. Some of the owners of the factories that we have seen being attacked or set on fire, the owners were supporters of the Awami League government. Some of them had very close ties in terms of, a working or a business, expanding their businesses with the administration. And you rightly point out there, all businesses that make a huge contribution to a country's economy will inevitably have a close working relationship with the administration in running the country. And that involves close ties in diplomacy, that includes close ties in influencing policy making, and that includes, that will include regulatory decision making in the country. Now, what we have witnessed is not only sort of targeted attacks on those businesses, but also a failure in kind of the leadership and when, for example, Trump administration announced this crippling 37% reciprocal tariff on Bangladeshi goods in April 2025, we saw the incompetency of the Yunus regime laid bare. They failed to protect the very people that are the lifeblood of Bangladesh's economic growth. So while how countries like Vietnam quickly negotiated a lower tariff, the interim government in Bangladesh was busy holding, there was some press briefings, spinning stories and making some empty promises. So this was, it's just worsened the crisis.
But at the end, Bangladesh negotiated a 26% tariff with the US government. Although it is questionable to which cost. It is the negotiation terms are not disclosed to the public. One thing we know that Bangladesh have to buy 25 Boeing from United States. Then, just a few days ago, German ambassador to Bangladesh said that if Bangladesh do not buy 10 Airbus from France, then we will have a problem with European Union to do business. And when we are saying that, those people who are affiliated with Awami League, we know one of the advisors of the current administration, Yunus's government, the director of the Akij Group, he was also, his company and his brothers were also very much affiliated with Bangladesh Awami League. So it is not that only those who are affiliated with the Bangladesh Awami League. It is, I believe, those who are willing to support Yunus and those who are not supporting, those who do not want to sell their more ethical conscience, they are targeted in this case in Bangladesh. Is it right?
I would, agree with your statement there. And I think what we saw and what was very apparent was not just a failure in the diplomacy and policy, but it's, the regime's inconceivable failure in leadership, competence and common sense. And like you say, it's not being very transparent with the negotiated, the negotiations that's taken place between the Yunus regime and the US. But what we do know, it's failing to protect those people who have built the economy in Bangladesh. They've contributed significantly, and we have to remember that behind every statistics, behind every door of the factory that's shutting and closing, it affects hundreds of workers. Hundreds of workers are losing jobs, and behind every worker, there are thousands of family members who are losing their lives and livelihood, and that's the scale of the impact we're seeing. So it's really important that we remember.
I would say instead of hundreds, hundreds of thousands would be the right assertion here, because as we know that 1.5 to 1.8 million people in Bangladesh already lost their job. Uh, and just putting the business part aside, my question is to Mr. Tapas Kanti Baul. Uh, can you explain us what are the, from a human rights perspective, what are the major human rights abuses and failures of the Yunus government in Bangladesh?
Thank you. At first, I want to remember and pay my. I'm grieving over the slums that were burned down in Bangladesh. You know, the one of the biggest slums in South Asia, Korail Bosti. So in that region alone, millions of workers are living. So first of all, if you want to, if you want to understand the mapping of workers in Bangladesh, you have to understand that first of all there are formal workers and then informal workers. The Bangladeshi law is actually covering only the formal workers. Formal workers are those like, for example, garments workers are formal workers, or workers who are working in the small machine industries or in different industries. They are registered as formal workers. However, we have millions of workers who are informal workers, like agricultural laborers. There are seasonal agricultural workers who work in the rural areas of Bangladesh every year. There are fishermen who work in that sector. They are actually informal workers. Now, even the formal sector, you can divide it into industry wise, but if there is a basic division between those who work abroad and those who work in Bangladesh. So when you are talking about the human rights of laborers, then actually you have to talk about everyone. For example, from the perspective of Constitution of Bangladesh, in the second part, you know that there is fundamental principles are laid down in the second part of our Constitution. In that Constitution, it has been categorically mentioned that the the rest of the Constitution has to be interpreted keeping in mind the interest of farmers and workers. These Their interest is the guiding principle of the Constitution of Bangladesh. Now, if you look into from this angle, and again, what Yunus has done to showcase that he is very brave, he is very worker friendly, he has ratified more ILO conventions without thinking about the implementation mechanism of that ILO conventions. So that has,
I have a question here,
yes,
Mr. Tapas. Can Yunus ratify those conventions? He is not elected. Does he have the authority?
absolutely not. Because first of all, he is not elected. This government is unconstitutional. We had these debates that whatever policy making decisions he is taking, he doesn't have that capacity. He doesn't have that authority, because whatever he is doing through ordinance, which he cannot do. You see, now the funny part is that Mr. Tajul Islam, the chief prosecutor, he is saying that if you challenge this ordinance making power of the president, then you are becoming anti-state. So this is because that guy doesn't know what he is talking about, right? In the constitution, it is said that it has to be reviewed within 120 days, each and every ordinance, and you are preparing and passing this ordinance without any without any time frame to be. You have to pass an ordinance, you have to pass an ILO ratification or ILO conventions, you have to ratify them through discussion, through debates in the parliament. Why in front of the parliament? Because these parliamentarians, they're elected from the citizens of Bangladesh. So the citizens directly, these member of parliaments are directly answerable to the citizens of Bangladesh. That opportunity you didn't provide. That's why we are saying that This is unconstitutional, undemocratic practice. But coming back to the point, that what is the present situation? Because of his unconstitutional nature of decision making, first of all, if you look into the, I will start with the informal sector. First of all, what you have done, you have stopped the mechanism of distribution of social welfare, the expenses that was provided by Sheikh Hasina. She is the one who used to pay a good amount of, you know, money as subsidies to these lower income workers. And most of them were women. Now, getting back to the formal sector, the current report says that you, I mean, unpaid wages are there. A new salary structure you have announced, but you don't have the money to pay them. Amnesty International has already reported that most government workers earn poverty wages, insufficient to cover living costs, and face retaliation for unionizing efforts. 140 plus garment factories are closed.
No,
130,000,
that
more than that.
officially it is 280. These are
Right,
the these are the factories that are affiliated and registered with BGMEA, the
right.
regulatory authority of government
These are the
sector.
ones. Yes, right. And
However,
then
how, however, there are hundreds more factories which are not registered with BGMEA, but they are the part and parcel of the industry. They're the
mhm,
backbone of the industry.
right.
Depending on these factories, depending on these businesses, and those close down as well.
Right. I'll just finish with saying that workplace accidents across sectors killed 707 workers in 2024, mainly in transport, agriculture, and construction. So nobody is talking with them, nobody is paying compensation to them, and you are sort of providing an immunity even on these accidents, because we haven't. If had it been taken place in the Awami League period, Rezwana, advocate Rezwana, she would have filed cases. Uh, Adil Rahman Shubo would have filed writ petitions, but that didn't
It's a
happen.
bread and butter, isn't it?
Absolutely. So what happened is that, there is Bangladesh Institute of Labor Studies, with whom I have worked for 10 years, more than 10 years. And there is American Solidarity Centers. These institutions were working and criticizing the government policies over 15 years. But now they're totally silent, because their policymakers, these civil society policymakers, they are now part of the labor reform commission, and that's why they are completely silent. That's how they are purchased. Their voice is completely, unheard right now. One sector, I will finish with saying that our expatriate workers, yeah, when Asif Nazrul took charge of this ministry, he said, "Okay, you will get VIP treatment in the airport." Now, what we are saying, what we are experiencing, we're experiencing that nobody cares about their luggage. Nobody cares that they're in the airport, or they are going or coming, or the remittance they're sending, because right now Yunus government has no foreign direct earning from any other industry. So whatever they are earning from the expatriates, they are taking it out through corruptions. So saying this, I will stop.
Dear audience, Bangladesh's garment sector is the backbone of its economy, and it is facing massive closures. This segment how corruption, political favoritism, and mismanagement under the Yunus regime led the factory shutdowns and widespread layoffs. Beginning with Mr. Anwar Shadat Jihan, Jihan will show us some slides for us to have a greater understanding of the situation.
Thank you, Mr. Alom, for connecting today. So, RMG, the ready-made garments industry, is the backbone of Bangladesh's economy. It provides the majority of the earnings to Bangladesh's economy. what we have seen after the fall of the Awami League government is very bleak. Hundreds of factories across the country was completely shut down. According to BGMEA, in a recent study that they conducted, they have found that approximately 353 garment factories were closed in a matter of only 14 months, leaving more than 119,000 workers
Those
jobless.
353 are the registered garment factories with BJMEA, not unregistered one.
Right, you're
Just
correct.
for clarification.
And this has left more than 119,000 workers jobless. And this is just reported numbers. Not all workers were included in that study. And majority of these workers are female. As Mrs. Chowdhury has rightly mentioned that more than 80% of the garments workers are female. And as we know that the garment industries in Bangladesh are concentrated in certain areas. For example, the Shabhar and the Gazipur, Nayanganj, this particular area. So if we take a look at the map of Bangladesh, we will see that there were 214 factories in Shabhar that were closed and about 72 in Gazipur. Shabhar and Gazipur were hit the hardest, which is affecting the crime rates in that area. Because all these hundreds of thousands of people that are being left without job, they have to provide something for their families. They have to put food on the table, and they don't have any way. So they are resorting to crimes. According to the Gazipur Metropolitan Police, there were 1,600 incidents of mugging that happened in only 6 months, and 1,600 muggers were arrested in Gazipur, and most of them are the garments workers. Theft, mugging, and fraud are through the roof in these particular areas where all these workers used to live or they live. And majority of
Just a minute, Jihan. These are the people who are now living on crimes because they have family. Just a
right,
year ago, 14 months ago, these people are contributing to the country.
right,
They,
and
they
meaningfully.
wake up, yeah, they wake up 6 o'clock in the morning. By 8, they're at the factory, they're at their workplace, working 8, 10, 12, 15 hours someday, doing overtime, because
Mhm.
overtime in Bangladeshi garment industry is very natural, and overtime in any other businesses in any other country, that's a natural phenomenon. And it's well, they get paid well, and these are the proud people, proud family men. They'll like 6 o'clock work, they'll come home, have a cup of tea, sit down with their family, they'll go back to their bed, going to work next day, planning for their weekend,
Mhm.
like just normal life.
Right. So the normal life
Normal,
has been
the
totally
normal
shattered.
family men are now muggers and criminals.
Right.
This is a gift
Mhm.
from
And
Yunus to
majority of these
Bangladesh.
people are female. So here in this picture, you are seeing this lady, Lima Akhtar, 28-year-old woman who was having a good life, or I mean, somewhat good life. She had a job. She could provide for her family. But then she was left jobless. At first, she sold her television, and then she sold her refrigerator, followed by selling her phone just to provide for her family. And now she's planning to sell her sewing machine. And women are the most vulnerable group in Bangladesh, right? They are exposed to many sort of abuses. And this large number of women without job is a challenge for society as a whole.
Also, Jihan, I would like to add one point here. Something we try to hide, but we shouldn't. It has already also been reported by many people that prostitution
Right.
in those industrial areas,
Mhm.
industrial hubs increased.
Right. Right. Because when you don't have food on the table, there is no logic. Logic does not work.
So we should call a spade and a spade.
Right.
That these women were backbone of Bangladeshi economy, and what Muhammad Yunus did forced them into prostitution.
Right.
The very people, women are the very people whom Yunus sold worldwide. That I'm doing for the women.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm empowering women, and this is exactly what he did when he
Now,
came to
now,
power.
now he changed the life upside down, completely changed the scenario. And in even like last year, 1 year ago, say there is this classroom, and there are a couple of students from a like middle class, lower middle class family. They would think about how they can collect stone from the moon, how they can build a rocket and send it to the moon. But now, as a result of rising poverty, they are left without food. They are worried about how they are going to have their lunch while at school. Poverty soared through the roof in this 1 year. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, with her bold vision and discipline, brought down the poverty and extreme poverty to single digit. She was praised not only by the UN but by all different parts of the world for her magic. They would wonder what kind of magic this iron lady has. But now, in a matter of only 1 year, the poverty soared to 28% from 18%, which was 18% about 20 in 2022. Extreme poverty went from 5% to 10%. And one of the reasons is the rising economic inequality. World Bank has recently conducted another study and published a report where they have raised concern about the rising economic inequality that are being observed today in Bangladesh. The Gini indexes rose from 51 to 54 in a matter of only 15 months, which depict the rising gap in income. And it is set to increase by 2 more Gini points by the end of 2025. And World Bank is predicting that 62 million people in Bangladesh are at risk of falling below the poverty line if they are faced with slight disturbance. If there is a flood or something like that, or some other natural disaster, 62 million people in Bangladesh are at risk of extreme poverty. This is the situation of Bangladesh today, Mr. Alam. Back to you.
I believe Jesmin Chowdhury has more to tell about the ground reality.
Okay.
Yeah. As the statistics speak for themselves, but we have to remember these are not just numbers. So those projections that we're seeing from the World Bank, these are a warning bell. A slowdown of this massive scale will push an estimated 3 million people into extreme poverty, and we are talking about extreme poverty here, raising poverty rate from 7.7 to 9.3. That's 3 million lives stripped of dignity, stripped of income and basic survival, and not by natural disasters or global recession. This is sheer policy and human failure. So behind all these headlines, workers in Bangladesh are suffering at a huge cost. Prices are up, as we know, wages are stagnant or don't exist anymore across the board. The bills are going up, production is slow, small businesses are folding, bank loans, defaults are rising, youth unemployment is rising alongside the food insecurity and poverty. So this, combined with the level of crime, the rise in crime we're seeing, the lawlessness in Bangladesh, this has become a ticking time bomb. And while thousands of workers are desperately looking for any type of work, as you touched on, Mr. Alam, many women who have lost their jobs are turning to very unsafe, insecure work, such as prostitution, to ensure their children and the family can have at least one meal a day. So these are and we're also seeing a very disturbing rise in violence against women at the same time. And it's just a very grim picture overall for the workers in Bangladesh.
It's not just the economy. This government is taking away the dignity from them. And
Absolutely.
Tapas, can Yunus brush off the responsibility?
Absolutely not, because you
I
see,
mean, how he contributed to this from a policy perspective and legal perspective?
he is the chief advisor, isn't he? So he is the sun and everything is moving around him. Without his nod, like you will see the pattern that when he nods to something, then his press secretary will come front of the media and play his tune. That has been the same way he has been doing it, that he is directly involved. He is showing, or he is trying to show, that he is in control of these kind of businesses. You will not find that in this pattern is absent in anywhere else. So definitely Yunus has contributed to the collapse from legal and policy perspective, without any doubt. For example, look into this lawmaking process. From the very beginning, it is known to him and to his body of advisors that they do not they have to just hold an election. Until the election, they have to run the government day by day. They do not take a huge amount of responsibility. Yes, we know that this is a totally unconstitutional, undemocratic government, but that was the idea the people had. But what he did instead, he is passing laws after law through ordinance process without any sort of assessment that whether the country has the capacity to support these policies, isn't it?
But
If you don't have the
I
money,
have
just a
another
second.
question.
If you don't have the money, but you are taking a huge project, or you are just giving words which are actually empty words, this is a totally a fraud. And when people are just hoping on this, that okay, something will come to us, and on the other hand they are now jumped under the poverty line, and a lot, thousands of, I mean millions of people are uh, spending their day without any sort of meal. That is quite pathetic.
But I have this question, like as we understand, because Yunus, the lack of trust in Yunus government, we know that billions of taka is unused. Taka is in Bangladeshi banks. They are not investing it, or no businessman is taking any loans for investment. Why is that? Is it a lack of trust?
He 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 wants to work in a scenario where everyone is planted by him. For example, he wants to control BGMEA, BKMEA, all the bodies he wants to control. So since at this moment he cannot control these bodies, uh, it, these bodies are not controlled by right wing Jamati Islami. That's why he is not probably comfortable right now in investing on these industries where their governing body is out of his reach or out of his control. Not only that,
Mhm.
the labor unions are a different political figures in Bangladesh, right? They don't understand the politics of Awami League, BNP, Jamaati Islami, or whatever it is. Always the time they have understood their own interest. For example, just look into the transport industry. If you see that any police or any law enforcement agency is taking any illegal measure against a transport worker, you will see that all the transport workers will blockade the road. They will strike. There will be no buses on the road. There will be no trains on the board. So in this situation, what they are doing, the Yunus government has filed thousands of cases against labor leaders, you see. And uh, these he is trying to grasp the control of these union centers in Bangladesh. There, if there is a trade union, then there is federation, then there is confederation, and then there is trade unions, you see. So This trade union are the elders, or the those trade union leaders who are elder now. So they sit over there, they preside over this decision making. So Yunus is trying to control them, and that's why he has totally jeopardized this democratic situation, which is trade union, because through trade unions workers can demand for their rights.
There is another aspect of it that, as Jasmine said before, that businesses that are affiliated with Bangladesh Awami League or businesses that are owned by the supporters of Bangladesh Awami League, they're closed down, shut down, vandalized, looted, even torched. However, some businesses are surviving, and is there political patronage for it, for survival of a business? Jasmine.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, these businessmen are businessmen. They want, for example, they want profit, they want to
Mhm.
survive in the business, they want to provide for the laborers. Because without laborers, businessmen are nothing. So to safeguard this whole system, they had to
Mhm.
compromise with their own belief.
When you say compromise, it means extortion.
Yes, obviously. If you look into these Magna Group and other groups who are right now running smoothly without any cases, you have to conclude that they have come up into some sort of understanding with the ruling class.
Mhm. And as we know, women make up the majority of the RMG workforce in Bangladesh. Yet they are bearing the burn of layoffs and unsafe working conditions under the Yunus regime. Jian, would you be able to show us what's actually happening with women, the women workers who are losing jobs in ground?
So it is not only the garments industry per se that where the women are struggling. Across the board in Bangladesh, there were more than 2.1 million job loss in this first 6 months, just the first 6 months of fiscal year 2025, and 86% of them were women. Women, when they are the primary and the only earning member of the family, and they cannot provide for the family, there are repercussions, and which is we are seeing from the food insecurity that we are seeing today in Bangladesh. Because the mother, the only single earning member of the family, is unable to provide, so there is no food. We are seeing reports that 16 million people face acute food insecurity in Bangladesh. And if we take a look at the map here, we'll see that the Chittagong region, where the Rohingya refugees are located, the Chittagong region is facing the most severe blow. The Rohingya women are perhaps the most vulnerable group at this very moment. The slums, Barrister Ball rightly mentioned about the Karail Bosti, right, where hundreds of thousands of people were there who used to be employed in the garments industry, directly or
80,000.
indirectly. Sorry,
80,000 people were residing in that slum.
80,000 people, and so many of them are directly or indirectly tied to the garments industry or the transportation industry or low skill industry, if you want to call it that way. And the slum people are facing serious nutrition crisis because the Awami League government had so many social programs that they had undertaken. They would give stipend to the vulnerable people, but after this unconstitutional regime took over, they have hit a brake pedal to those programs. They are mismanaging those programs. They did not close those formally, but they are mismanaging. When we are seeing corruption allegations, not only for the advisors, but by the chief advisor himself, this is pretty normal scenario. And the BMP and Jamaat goons, they are taking over these social programs. They are removing the names of people from this program saying that they were tied or to the Awami League, or they were the lackeys of the Awami League, and they are stealing the monies directly from these social programs. And there were some social program for the women as well. The female students, they would get scholarship, special stipend. They hit up brake pedal on that too. And there is reports of frauds in those new lists that they are making. So while resorting to corruption and mismanaging these programs and intentionally breaking the economy of Bangladesh, Yunus is leading Bangladesh to a complete destruction. I mean, in one sentence, if we want to call it, he is leading Bangladesh to a complete destruction.
And Jesmin, you have been studying Bangladesh for years and observing its growth. Would you be able to give us a brief picture how Bangladesh has risen, like how Bangladesh reduced poverty? Like as we know that in 1991 or 2008, Bangladesh had probably 40%, not probably, Bangladesh had 40% people living under the poverty line, 10% under extreme poverty line. That was reduced significantly, 18% poverty and 5% extreme poverty. So it was almost eradicated. So would you be able to give us a brief overview? Okay, how Bangladesh did it, how we did it?
Well, as you rightly point out, Sheikh Hasina's government between 2009 and 2024 are widely credited around the globe. They are widely credited with driving one of the most rapid periods of poverty reduction in Bangladesh's history. So under Sheikh Hasina, Bangladesh maintains some of the fastest GDP growth rates in the world. Had high stable growth, expanded jobs, incomes, and government revenue. And they did it, they did the reduction in poverty through sort of high sustained economic growth over that period. Infrastructure development, especially in the rural areas. We saw how, there was a remarkable development projects within the rural parts of Bangladesh. Women's employment and empowerment was a critical part of that success story. Expanded societal or social safety nets, such as widow benefit. There was homes being built for people living, thousands of families who lived below the poverty belt. Remittance-centered policies, health and education improvements, strategic infrastructure mega project. I can go on and on. So
one of the most significant program I would say was during the COVID time, when our RNG garments industry and other industries had trouble paying the workers the monthly wages. And it was the time government gave them loans. Government gave them
I want to interfere and
And
say
the government actually took the hit. They provided loan only on 4% or 5% interest rate when the interest rate was 9%.
Yeah.
Yes, Batsabal.
Yes, I wanted to say that I was the legal advisor of Bangladesh High Tech Park Authority during that time. And one of the project of High Tech Park Authority was to build a high-tech city in Korail Bosti, in Korail slum area. So when the proposal, there was like a 3,000-page, assessment report was placed before the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. What she did? She just wrote 2 words on the order page. She said that rehabilitation first, and then she signed her name. So this was,
she's so motherly, isn't it? She's just
yes,
motherly.
she, without any read petition or without anything. But what happened? And then there was 6 proposals for rehabilitation. What she said those who works within 10 kilometers of this slum, they will stay here. And the single workers, I will make a dorm for them so that they can stay here at any reason. Within the site, they will leave. And others whose work are far away, they will be provided and have no land anywhere in Bangladesh. Under the Ekti Bari Ekti Khamar Prokolpo, they will be provided homes.
I
That's what
mean,
she said.
one farm, one house.
Right. And then she also said that if there is anyone who wants to take just cash compensation, she said there will be no lack of funding for that. But then what happened? What happened is that Barrister Sarah Hussain and Blast, Ainu Shalish Kendro, Bella, they filed a writ petition. And then they halted this whole process. Right. When I presented in front of the court these six uh, plans of the government to rehabilitate the workers who are living in the slums, Dr. Kamal Hossain, he himself was present and he himself praised the very word you used, mother. That's the word he used in front of the court. But in spite of that, that project couldn't go through. So,
So
and
I have another question, just an addition. You mean when these people could file a writ petition and can stop a government project, a project in which the prime minister was very interested, and in a project uh, to which Prime Minister's son, Shajibwajir Joy, was interested, and with a writ petition, they can stop it. So Bangladeshi court and the Bangladeshi government was that type of liberal and functional and that type of
absolutely,
free at that time.
the assessment, the plan of building this high-tech park was taken in was adopted in 2013. Then the assessment was presented before the prime minister on 2016, and by that time these no sorry this assessment was presented in front of her in 20, even in 2012, before the adaptation. So this writ was filed in 2013, just the following year, and since then till this time this writ is pending. Now my question to you, after this fire, did you find a single writ petition from these NGOs or from these lawyers? Did Dr. Sarah Hussain, Barrister Sarah Hussain went to the court and asked for compensation? No. Did Blast, Ainu Shalish Kendro, or any other NGO, Bela of Sayyada Rizwana, did they go and ask for compensation? No.
What we have seen is that the victims
When you
missing Sheikh
speak of
Hasina.
Sayyida Rajawana,
You remember that
that,
lady saying that if Sheikh Hasina was here, then there would be a helicopter providing us water, providing us with support. You know, the people are missing Sheikh Hasina.
That's what happened every time. Fire is not happening. Fire in this kind of dense slum is not alien, you see. It can happen at any time. But Awami League government, particularly Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, never ever took this opportunity to clear the slum. Whenever there was fire, even though she knew these are all illegal constructions, there would be compensation from the government so that the people can still build up and stay in this place, you see. So this is what Sheikh Hasina is. This is what is her love towards this, to the workers. This is her commitment to the constitution, because it is written in the constitution that Bangladesh will always the time protect the rights and dignity of the farmers, of the workers. They are the backbone of the country. So she was always the time dedicated, and this is my experience.
we are going to stay with you, Barrister Bowl, on job sector, joblessness, a factory shutdown, and also poverty. Did you see any policy from the Yunus government to uh, overcome this situation? Any policy that could overcome this situation?
Look, Yunus's policy is just to target people on the basis of their political belief, on the basis of their religious belief. I don't have the exact statistics right now, but you have seen that how many teaching staffs government third and fourth class employees have been sacked by the government just because they are Awami League, just because they are Hindus. It's plain and simple. Everywhere, wherever there are any temporary, even temporary workers, their contract was not renewed. Just day before, I'm not going to mention which ministry or which department, just few days ago, a Hindu employee, he called me and said that his promotion is stalled just because he is Hindu and he was appointed during the Awami League period. Can you imagine? This is the example everywhere. For example, you are talking about, we are talking about formal workers, right? What is the status of constables of police? What are the status of soldiers of military, army, and in navy? They are also workers. They just wear a dress. That doesn't mean that their status is very high. They are also workers. And how many of them have been sacked by this government and their cohorts? Do we have that record? We do not have that record. Just because they were appointed during this period, they were sacked. We have seen that few police constables who were protesting this, they were put into handcuff, sedition charges are filed against them, and they are dragged to the court. When they were trying to speak in front of the camera, their mouth was shut by another colleague of theirs. So, if you are a worker, this is the worst time in Bangladesh to live right now. You don't have dignity, you don't have
And
your voice, and nothing.
those workers who lives in the slums, they're migrant workers. They come from many parts of the country to capital Dhaka to work in the industries, or in Chittagong to work in the industries, Gazipur to work in the industries. How they're surviving?
We don't know that. Because why, we don't know that? Because Yunus regime is controlling the media. They have gagged every single media there we have. Only through social media we can see that the rickshaw pullers, the garment workers, they are saying that they don't have enough to buy foods. Now they are buying, they wait till the end of the day so that the rotten vegetables they can buy, rotten fish they can buy, so that they can cook and feed their family. This is the present situation. Jamaat has already provided a policy that they will cut short the period of working hour for women, right? From 8 hours to 5 hours. The government has, from the day one, they are also discouraging women.
Also, they said they will encourage women to stay at home.
Absolutely, they are encouraging women to stay at home. What does it
And
mean for
this is what they're saying before they get into the power. Imagine if
absolutely
they get into the power.
right? So that means that they do not have any policy for the workers at the moment. They do not have any policy to feed them. They do not have any policy to employ them, to pay their wages. They do not have, the only policy they have is discrimination, to terminate them because of their political identity, because of their religious identity. That is what they mean business. They do not have any other policy.
Just when you're a mother, you have children. How would you feel like if you were in a situation and you have children?
Yeah, I think just before I go to that question, Mr. Alam, I think you were saying, Jamaat are claiming these things even before they come into power. But I think we have to state very clearly that Yunus's administration has been and is propped up by the extremists, such as Jamaat-e-Islami, who are dictating whether a woman like me can be in public services, whether a woman can take part in sports, how many hours she should be able to work and how she should dress. So these, we've seen this kind of rise of extremist views against women being, part and parcel of this administration from the beginning. As a mother and as a practitioner in public health, we're talking about sort of slum population. We're talking about, the vulnerability of the women and children living in those, among those population, how they're sort of hardest hit when you have this kind of economic, chaos and political upheaval. And we're aware how, maternal health problems, for example, or access to health services for the women living in those among those population groups is always difficult. So we know the evidence tells us fewer women who live in slum, among the slum population, for example, will have those antenatal care, so the maternal health, maternity services. They will have those very risky and precarious home deliveries often without any assistance from any health professionals. The effect on mental health, the psychological distress for women who are losing their jobs, their livelihood, and live this kind of in precarious conditions, is massive. And the burden of that on children who are also experiencing exclusion from education, from health, and their developmental growth that is vital for them. The health protection that's really vital for their growth. The mental scars will live with these families for years and years. So these are long-term implications of the devastating impact of these administrations that we're witnessing.
Just a year and a half ago, for these people, they had a government for which they were the priority. We have seen for 15 years, the Bangladesh government, led by Bangladesh Awami League, prioritized the poor, the underprivileged. Like, school food for kids for the underprivileged family. They go to school they get food. They go to school, the family gets a rice every week. We have seen vaccination, 100% vaccination in Bangladesh. We have seen aid and a social safety net for new school bags and new school dress. We have seen community clinics, like in every probably in few kilometers of Bangladesh, community clinics for maternity for women and children. We have seen a government making a free home for those who are homeless. And from there, they reached a place where our entire neighborhood was burned down, 80,000 people living there. It's been 3-4 days, and government didn't send a sack of rice for those people. Not even a sack of rice the government didn't send. This is Bangladesh today under Muhammad Yunus. And for the path forward, I believe we need a free and fair election, inclusive election, where each and every Bangladeshi could participate, each and every political party could participate, and they could decide what's good for them. A democracy. Our time is closing to an end. We'll see you next week with another group of panelists. Thank you so much. And let's fight. Let's fight, claim our country back.
Thank you.